Hey, you guys. So, you know, we're going to go into it, get into it, my journey. I posted some of these on Facebook, but I feel like it's good to get one here. Um, but anyway, let's get started. So, my mom and my dad are currently 46 and 47, right? So my dad's 46 because he was born, 47, he was born 76, 1976 of January, and my mom was born 1976 of July. Um, and my mom is a, blonde haired, green eyed, beautiful Caucasian and Cherokee Indian woman. And my dad is a very stout, very handsome African American. I think he has some Indian in him as well. Okay, so when they met, I'll give you the story. They met in a town, a small town, and they met at a movie theater that my family owned. And I guess from then on, it was like love, and they had their struggles, because my mom and my dad lived two totally different lives. He lived across track, she lived on the other side of the track. Um, growing up in a family who really didn't accept interracial relationships. His side was more understanding than hers, even though both sides really weren't keen on interracial relationships. Um, so I gotta give them their props for that. Uh, Later on in life, my father had ended up, um, getting into some trouble, and then had to take a hiatus for a little while, for a few years. And during that time, my mom had, this is like once I was like 8, I was like 7 to 8. No, maybe I was like 6. Okay, I think I was like 6. And my mom had met her first husband, and no, my dad wasn't her husband. My dad did propose though at one point, but no, he wasn't her husband. But she met her first husband, and he was very abusive in many ways. Um, and their relationship was just genuinely toxic. Of course, you have good times, right? There's good times in that. There's a lot that could have been avoided. There's a lot that could have taken place. That was a struggle. And then I myself ended up getting abused by that person. Um, you know, yeah. So during that time, things were difficult. And sometime after that, there was a lot going on between them. And so while I was at my grandma and papa's house, my little sisters were at our aunt's house. Well, our aunt called our grandma, and grandma called our other grandma, and that grandma decided to, you know, take my sisters in. And she did so for a while, and then she decided that she was not going to give them back to my mom, which was disrespectful because, my mom was getting her life changed. She was ready to, take that on, and she had left him, and which I was proud of her for, you know. Um, but she didn't care. She wasn't willing to necessarily give them back. Um, so during that time, I was staying with my papa and my grandma and mom too, on and off. Because she's a businesswoman as well. I said was is a businesswoman as well. She had a lot. to do and a lot going on. And my grandparents were very prominent in my life. Well, on that time, I decided that I was going to go stay with my sisters for a little bit because I missed them and I loved them. And I was like, like, I'm going to go visit my sisters. So, Texas, I went to visit them and ended up staying there for a few years. Um, and that was good times. It was strict, very stern, very different than, a lot that I was used to. But, I did go on mission trips to, I went to a church camp in Pine Springs, New Mexico. Then I went to a mission trip, Ops Camp, California. I think it's San Diego. No, San Francisco. And I was a counselor at a camp, and that was pretty cool. We went to Colorado, a lot of stuff like that. And it was a vibe. So then essentially that grandma ended up trying to adopt us. I think she ended up adopting us, and then I had to get my birth certificate and all that stuff again. Well, crazy thing, right? So whenever I was first born, my parents, I think more so my mom, but my parents actually had decided to give me up for adoption. So originally on my birth certificate, from what I know, it was, my name was Leslie Marie Sharee Michelle Poling Shaw. Okay. But tell me why, whenever I went to go get my birth certificate, I had no name. My name was Baby Girl Poling. So as you can imagine, I was like, dang, that's jacked up. Right? Which I already knew that I was given up for adoption and stuff, but my mom and my grandma and my papa ended up coming and getting me, and so I stayed, but I was given away at some point. Then once I got adopted, that's when I found that out, and I thought that was crazy. Now, speed up a little bit, I'm back with my papa and my grandma, and life is good. I'm going to school, doing the things I need to do, with my Aunt Shelby and Jamie and Tim and mom and grandma and papa. And, we lived a good life, fun, joyful, abundant, that kind of understanding, as much as we could, and with our own resources, or with the resources that we had, all living in one house, so it was cool. That's how it had always been. So that's, it was normal for us. And a blessing it is and was. And then, a little bit after that, I started high school. Well, high school was fun, right? I'm not gonna say I was popular, but like everybody else would argue that I was popular. But I really didn't feel like I was popular because there was like the popular athletes. I wasn't an athlete. I was not. Now in Texas at Nimitz, I went to Nimitz High School. Shout out to my Vikings. There I felt like I was a little popular there. I felt, but not like too popular at all. I wasn't. Sports and stuff like that, like karate, but not like school sports. Okay. I was in the Vicas, the dance group, and stuff like that. But yeah, grades were also a little wonky. So during that time, while I was there in Texas, I ended up meeting, at the time, my boyfriend, through MySpace. And he was older. And we'll call him Jay, okay? And, we were rocking for years. Well, then, once I got back to Papa's house and I was going to high school there, I ended up meeting Michael, I could say that, Michael. And, we immediately connected through Facebook. Thank you, Facebook. We did end up connecting through there, and we decided that essentially I had a birthday party and it was lit. and Shasha Jones sang me happy birthday because that's my cousin through my stepdad's side, and and so she was singing me happy birthday. And she's famous. She sang that song with Super J. So anyway, um, so Michael had messaged. Well, Michael was best friends with my cousin, who's Dante. And they were, like I said, they were best friends. And I was having that party, and Dante was like, "Hey, she's having a party. Y'all go ahead." And they were Michael was trying to get them VIP tickets to my party. Well, they didn't end up making it to my party. So later on, he was like, "Hey, how you doing?" We were talking about stuff, and I was like, "Yeah, I just did the cinnamon challenge." And he was like, "Oh, I want to do the pepper challenge." And I was like, "Oh, I also want to do the milk challenge," you know. And so we met on the premise of like, yeah, let's come together, like do some challenges and like get to know each other, so on and so forth. Well, time came and went, and we ended up getting pregnant. At 18, I was 18, he was 17, and we ended up getting pregnant with our son, Keaton. And that was a blessing, but that was scary, because we were so young and really didn't know nothing about that. You know what I mean? We were just young and in love. And so that was definitely wild. So I pretty much hid that I was pregnant until like the 5th or 6th month. There was a homecoming dance. Well, at the homecoming dance, we were all dancing, having fun. Well, my friend had went up on him and started dancing, and I was like, "Oh, excuse me," and he didn't dance back or like hold her or nothing like that, but he stood there for a second, and I was infuriated because I was pregnant. I was very emotional, and so I ran up to try to. I don't know which one I was going for. Maybe it was the double, but I tried to run up, but my friends, Candace and Sierra and Michaela and I forget, but there's other ones there, and they try to pull me back and not let me get to them. Well, I was like, fine, so I ran the opposite way. I was like, fine, so I go run to the bathroom because I would start feeling sick. I was like, oh no. So here I go run to the bathroom. There's a wall like this high off the ground. Kid you not, this high off the ground. I fell. When I fell, boom, landed on my knee and my stomach. Mind you, I was 6 months pregnant. All my friends had known that, but nobody else knew, like not the teachers, none of that. So tell me how I ended up in the bathroom. There was blood like on the dance floor and stuff, like to the bathroom, like a trail of blood. And everybody was like, my friends were like, "Oh, she's pregnant, is she okay?" And then the teachers came over, then the security guards, then everybody else, and then Michael fought to get into the girls' bathroom to check on me, and I didn't want to talk to him. I was like, boy boo. But we discovered that the baby was kicking. I assumed everything was okay. I didn't feel too crazy after I handled everything I was handling. And then they played my song "WOP," WOP. WOP. And I was like, "Oh, gotta get to the dance floor." And I was just dancing and danced the night away. Well, the next day I went to school, and the whole school knew. Whole school knew I was pregnant. Teachers knew, the guards, the people, everybody. They all knew I was pregnant. I was like, "Oh my God, please don't tell my mom." Like, I was like, "Please don't let this get back to my grandparents or my mom." Like, oh my gosh, like I was freaking out. And so I was like, okay, I got to tell mom before somebody else does. So I go home that day, and mom was like, "Oh, I'm done smoking cigarettes." I was like, "Oh shit, I gotta let her know before she, smokes her last cigarette." But here she was smoking the last cigarette, and I watched it get to the half point, and I was like, "Hey, you remember how you said that we can talk about anything? Well, we can make it through anything. Well, this is one of those moments." I told her, I was like, "I'm pregnant," and she was like, how do you know? Let's go get a test. And I was like, well, I could feel the baby kick. And she's like, okay, let's go get a test. And I was like, and I got milk. She's like, okay, let's go get a test. She was really in denial, for real, for real. So we went to my Nana's house, and I took the pregnancy test. Turned out I was pregnant. There was emotions behind that, but it wasn't negative. Um, then we told his mom, and that was interesting. And at the time, I was doing like babysitting jobs for military people and like odd jobs, like Taco Bell, stuff like that. And he was working at Brahms. Well, later on, he had asked me to marry him, and I was like, yeah, So we went to the courthouse, we got married, and Keaton was like, I want to say like 2 to 4 months. This was after we both graduated. We both graduated high school. Then he decided that he was going into the military. He was going Navy. But you know me, I was emotional, and I was like, dang, like I just had a baby. You're leaving for months at a time. Like it was a lot. And then in that time, his mom had passed away. So then he came back, and we ended up getting a house, and there was a lot going on. Now, me and his mom were cool, but we had a debacle, right? We had had a fallout, pretty much. Something told me, God apparently was like, hey, you need to go make things right with her. And I was like, okay. So I asked mom, I was like, hey, mom, will you go drive me and Keaton over there? But by that time, I was pregnant with Chloe, and we had had our first house in Lawton, 1409 Dearborn. Uh, then we had moved to 2005. I think were we at 2005 Taft? No, we weren't there yet. Were we? Yeah, I think we were. I think that's where we lived. But so anyway, something told me like, hey, I need to make it right with his mom. So I was like, hey, can I come over? I go over there, knock. It was Halloween. I take the kids in, so Keaton, so he could see her and they could talk. And I let her know, I was like, I want you to be in their lives. You're an amazing woman, and I'm sorry how things happened, but I'm also pregnant, and I named her Cora, which was Michael's sister from his mom and his dad who had passed away. And I named her that because I was like, that's a beautiful way, but also I got a grandma named Cora Lee. To this day is still alive. And I thought that would, pay homage to both. So that was cool. So, I was excited about that. Things were moving forward good, but she had a cold. Well, turns out that night she had actually passed away, and I thank God that we got to rectify the situation, because had we not have, I would have felt terrible. But we did. We I think maybe wasn't that night, maybe it was the next day. I'm not sure, but it was either that night or the night after. Was whatever she was found and stuff, and it was peaceful. She was in her bed, but yeah, I was thankful that we had made everything work out. So he was still in the military, and then we had had our house in on Taft, and my best friend was living with me at the time. Like, my baby brother was living with me at the time as well, and like a few of our friends would stay with us on and off, and also my cousin, who was also my stepdad at the time, who was dating my mom. Um, I know how that sounds, but it was. Um, he was living with us, and then he had passed away in the house, and it was terrible. So of course, we didn't want to stay in the house, so we decided, okay, we're gonna move. So we decided to move to Oklahoma City. Well, here we go to Oklahoma City. 3 days into Oklahoma City, we get a call from Sydney, somebody that we knew from across the street, saying, hey, your house is on fire. Oh my God. So we still had some stuff to go back and get, but the house was on fire. And they were putting out the fire, so we were like, oh crap. But at the same time, we had already moved, so like, it was what it was. Even though it was sad that, all of our memories and stuff like that were gone, that were in that house that we didn't already take with us. So, anyway, we're in Oklahoma City at that time. Mom was talking to somebody who, she knew from back in the day who was paroling, and she was like, hey, he's going to parole here. And I was like, okay. And that was in our apartment. Well, turns out, he was in jail or prison. I can't remember which one. And, then they had their, relationship ups and downs, like most of them do. But also during that time, I had found a boyfriend. I was like avidly. I had somebody staying with me. Well, my church, I had him staying with me at the time, and and we were together, but like it was different. You know what I mean? And that's when I got pregnant the third time. OMG. Mind you, I was still pregnant. I said pregnant. I was still married, but I hadn't been talking to him. So, and then I got pregnant by another man, and I was like, oh crap, like, but then at the time, we also had people staying with us, and I ended up being with that person, and it was a lot. It was a lot. So, I had to figure out what I was going to do. Well, after he had found out, he was like, okay, I want a divorce. And I was like, that makes sense, So I signed the divorce papers, no problem. However, I still had the baby, and at the time I knew that I wasn't emotionally in the place that I needed to be. I had Keaton and Chloe. All of my kids were 2 years apart, and so you can imagine the ages. Keaton was 4, Chloe was 2, and then I had the new baby. And so I had actually decided to give her up for adoption. So I was looking for a really good adoptive home. And so Mom was looking into it, came up with a couple, and we met these people. I don't know if they want me to disclose their names. I feel like they'd be okay with it. Candy and Mike, for those of you who know on the journey. They had said that they had been trying for years, and multiple people had like backed out on them in the adoption stuff. And I was like, okay, and they both had an anchor tattoo. I had one too, and I was like, okay, that's a good message, and they were really loving, caring, kind, compassionate people, interracial as well. So I was like, oh, like that's a vibe. And we really hit it off. We clicked, and everything was good. And they were like, are you sure? Because we had somebody back out before. And I was like, I won't back out. This is the formed decision that I made that, I love her, and I would love to, be a part of her life. But I just don't think that at the time I could not. Like I was going through so much pain. So much pain. In so many ways. And I didn't want to bring her up in that, and Keaton and Chloe, that was a lot. And I thought I was going to be alone trying to raise these kids. And, my best friend had just moved away, and there was a lot. And my mom and her man, like, they were going through stuff. And I was just like, man, like, that was a lot, So I felt like I was having Braxton Hicks contractions and stuff. And I was like, okay, let's go to the hospital. I want to make sure everything's okay. They told me that they were seeing her head, but I had 2 C-sections, so they, rushed me to have her. I texted them. I was like, hey, pregnant. I said pregnant. She's coming, and they got there, and, everything was fine. I had her. She's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Cassie. Cassandra Marie. And I was so excited, I thought that was great. And Candy and Mike were there, but however, the person that I was dating had showed up at the hospital and choked me, and we got into this big fight because we did. We just got into this big fight, and he ended up like choking me and stuff. And then the nurse came in. She was like, "Oh, I hear you yelling." And my daughter was there, and it's a big thing. And Mike and Candy were there, and I was like, "Oh man, like if this doesn't let you know, so." So then, I gave them Cassie, and they were so excited. And I felt a lot, but I was excited for them and that I brought in this beautiful princess into this world. You know what I mean? Regardless, I feel like I did my part. Nursed her to good health and had her, gave her to some lovely people. And I was so emotional. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just sign myself out. They were like, you just had a baby. I was like, I know, but can I go ahead and sign myself out? They were like, against the hospital's wishes. I was like, yeah, sign me out. So they did. And so I went home and kind of, was medicating a little bit. If you know me, you know me. Um, yes, I was an herbalist at the time as well, and so I was doing that, trying to get myself into better spirits and stuff. And it was hard. There was a lot of tears and a lot of sadness and a lot of joy, and there was a lot going on. Um, so then after that, my best friend came back down to, to the apartment, and my mom and her dude had ended up leaving, so we had the apartment with the kids. There was a lot going on during that time, and I was going to the hospital kind of frequently because there was a lot going on. But all in all, everything was okay. Um, and then, like a little bit after that, um, me and Bessie, we were kicking it, having fun, doing what we do. And oh, so then we were in these hotels, staying in the hotels for a little while, and there was a lot going on at that time. Okay, if you know, you know. So there was a lot going on, and after that, I ended up going into a hospital for my mental health. Um, because, like I said, I was really going through it. There's a lot going on, and there really was. And the reason why that happened was because my mom was like, "Where have you been all night?" I was like, "Da da 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 da," and so she was like, "Well, let's go get you checked." And I was like, "No, I'm good." And she was like, "No, we're gonna go get you checked." And so I ran, and I jumped in a car. I was skipping cars. Like I jump in one car, drive a little bit, jump in the next car, drive a little bit, jump in the next car, drive a little bit. I don't know what the world I had going on. So that was happening. So while I was in there, they ended up getting a new apartment. Well, boom. The apartment we moved to was nice. It was a pretty good place and had decent people around. However, during that time, again, there was a lot going on. Well, there was a fight that broke out, um, and her man had ended up getting shot. She had ended up getting hit with a baton and split her stuff, or she had to get staples or stitches. And me and the kids were in the house asleep. Well, we came out, we're like, OMG. So they were rushed to the hospital. That was a big debacle. Well, I want to say sometime after that, there was this other girl that we got into this thing with. We got into a whole fight with her. And I initiated it, and that was my bad. but I don't play that mess. She was talking disrespectfully about my mama, and if you know me, then you know me. So I was like, what? And I ran out. Needless to say, but so fight. So her brother came out with a gun, pointed right at me, like to my face, and let off a shot. I dropped to the ground, and then they got scared off. Thankfully, they got scared off by uh, my stepdad, and that was a blessing. Um, that was a blessing. Um, so then after that, here we are all in the house, and I was like, you know what? That's 2 times something crazy has happened out here in these apartments, and I got these kids, and it's like, no. So I got the kids, and I went to Brandy's house. I stayed with Brandy all the time, off and on. She was my cousin's best friend at the time, who actually became really good, close friends with me as well. Um, who I call my wifey at the time, because yes, I like men, women, transgender. It don't matter. Like, if you have a good heart and we can build, then I like you. This is what it is. And so, but it was platonic. There was no sex involved. But she was my wifey, and she had kids, and I helped take care of their kids. She helped me with mine. It was a beautiful reciprocity. However, we met somebody, one of her friends came down and were telling us how her son had got shot and killed, and I was like, wow, and she was like, yeah, there's a lot of job opportunities, so on and so forth. And I was like, she was like, yeah, but I got to go back to Muskogee. And I was like, can me and my kids go with you? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, okay. So we got our stuff and we went with her. We started doing mission trips, feeding the neighborhood. We started going to church. I mean, baptisms. It was a lot going on. Blessed. And then at that time, she had started dating somebody from the church, Miss Leo, who is actually somebody's grandpa that stayed with me way back in the day. And, they started dating. Well, at that time, I had met Carlos. And I was doing massages and, on my spiritual journey, I did tarot. And he was like, hey, come over and, I'll pay you for your services. I was like, oh, thank you. So gave him a massage. His uncle and his dad was there. And so, that was a vibe. And then I got me a job at the McDonald's up there. And, I was making my money. The kids were in school. Then we had them homeschooled. So there was a lot in between time. Well, Caroline and Leo were really hitting it off, and they were really doing their thing. So I was like, okay, well, maybe it's time for me to move. And at the same time, Carlos was trying to move out of his dad and his uncle's house. So we was like, hey, we can move in together into an apartment in the same complex as everybody, though, which was cool. So we ended up getting our own place and furnishing it. We had our food, everything was good. We were able to keep up with our rent, able to keep up with our food. We were still able to chill. The kids were good. They were going to school. He was writing his book. I was helping him edit his book, which is called the the Show and Tell. I have a little card of it, but anyway. But he ended up taking my stuff off of there, and that's fine. It's his book anyway. But in the process, I was like, okay. And we were living together, and I thought that person was my forever person, okay? Thought we were going to be married, so on and so forth. It was real deep. At the time, I thought it was Mother Mary. Yes, Mother Mary. And I was going through a rabbit hole with that. Now, not like Mother Mary, like that one that birthed Jesus, but essentially reincarnated the energy. I really resonated with her. And mind you, the person I was staying with resonated with Mary Magdalene. There was a lot going on, and my mind was altered, and that's what I felt. I still resonate with it, which is why my business is called She Joy, right? Because what is joy? It's very, so on and so forth. So anyway, but I'm not saying that I'm Mother Mary, but I do resonate with her energy very highly. Um, but anyway, um, but I kept with that person. We kept talking and kept being together. And it was a little toxic to say the least. So I was like, you know what? um, I was like, no. So I left in the middle of the night and I went to Altus to go stay with my dad with the kids. Well, we were there. Everything was good. It's always a good time with my dad. Always. He's amazing. He's motivated. Him and SHAREE, that's his new love. And they're rocking. They're a great couple. She's got kids and he's got kids. And together, we all live together. And we had just fun. There's just a really good family vibe without toxicity or negativity. And that was a blessing at the time. When the kids was having fun, they was in school. It was a really good vibe. It was a really good energy, and I'm forever grateful for them um, allowing us to go there. However, sometime after that, I'd end up going back up there with my mom. I don't know how that worked out, but I ended up going back up there with my mom. And during that time, I called Michael and I was like, hey, you want to come and get the kids? I just want to take some time to get my stuff together and get me a new apartment. Well, so then I went back down to, oh, no. Then I went to a rehab. Oh, okay, we skipped a lot. Okay, so he came and got the kids. Well, after that, again, I was going through the spiral because I didn't realize like how much motivation that they gave me, like how better I was with them. But it's still, I was like, I still want to get us a house here and make things good for them here. Stack my money. Not have to worry about somebody babysitting them or what's going to happen or not stressing about anything. So on and so forth. Well, while I was there during that time, I had met this person and was cool with them, and then he got mad at me because I said something a little wild, but it was something my intuition told me, so I spoke on it. He broke my phone. I was brokenhearted. It was terrible. Everybody thought we were gonna fight. Well, later on, he said that he came to pick me up, and he was like he was gonna burn me in the car and kill me, and so on and so forth. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. So he ended up going in the house. I took the car. I took the car and drove out. I brought the car right back because I thought about that. I was like, no. I didn't know my way around the town, and that car was out of line, so I was like, no. So then I took off running, got back to the house, and I was like, okay, OMG. But I got back to Brandon's house, and Tammy had got me a Uber there, so I went there, and everything was good. And then I was staying with John and Lynn, and during that time, so much was taking place. And then we ended up calling that a quits. Like that ended up not being a good thing. Well, so there was a lot in between that time as well. But so then after that, I was like, man, you know what? I'm gonna just go to this rehab place and I'm gonna just get my mind right. You know what I mean? So I did that. I went in there for like a month or so, and I talked to my grandparents about like once I got out of there, then I was gonna go there, and then I was gonna go to North Carolina with Michael and the kids. Well, so I did the rehab. I felt a lot better. Then I was staying with Papa and Grandma. Well, during that time, I didn't end up going out, and they were like, "What? You're gonna ruin your life if you leave." And I was like, "Oh man, like but I was just really into that I was really into that rehab, and I was like, dang, I want to get out and do some stuff. And they were like, hey, why don't you stay in the house and kind of chill? And I appreciate it, but it ended up being not the thing, and so I ended up going back to dad's. Well, boom, back to dad's I went and got my apartment and a job and was doing pretty good. A 3-bedroom apartment. It was nice, furnished, had food, lights, water, you name it. It was nice. And it was like a street over from my dad and them, and so it was a good thing. And then my brother and his girl, and and then our uncle lived right there. So like it was good. It was a good family energy. But then Michael was like, okay, me and the kids are on the way to come get you. I was like, okay, cool. So then he came to get me, and there we were in North Carolina. Well, in North Carolina, I was still doing my business. At the time, my business was called Halves on the Crafts, right? Because life was a gamble at that time. And I wanted to give people like, hey, you want to know what's going on? Like, let's get into it. And so that was going on, and I was also, a community leader at the time, bringing families together. We were watching these kids, and I had a mom's group, and everything was vibing, everything was good. Then we ended up moving from there to Hawaii, and that's where we're at currently. And the thing that I would say is about all that, right? I would say that I did lie, I cheated, I stole, I was on alcohol, I did do drugs, um, I adulterated, but I also did missionary, things. I also changed lives. I've saved lives. I've, helped other people come to God, and so there was ups and downs in that journey. But all the time, no matter what negativity I was going through, I was always a positive person. No matter what negativity I was going through, I was always helping people and trying my best to be my best. You know what I mean? And even though I was so young, and there really is a lot to that um, energy, right? And now my kids are 9 and 7. Okay, yes, doing well in school academically, in sports as well. They both won championships for their basketball. Um, Michael's doing well. Um, he's leveling up in his military job. He's been there for almost 10 years now. Wait, yeah, for almost 10 years now. And he's going for the 20-year mark. And me, my business is really taken off. I just hired a new manager, which is Heidi. Um, and y'all can watch her testimony. It's in the testimonies. Um, and things are really good. And I guess if I had to give you guys some advice, it would be make sure that whatever you do, that you don't have regrets. And the way that I would say that you could do that is to make sure that every move that you make is with love in your heart. You trust your emotions. Try not to hurt people. It's inevitable. You're gonna hurt some people. I broke hearts and I got my heart broke. But at the same time, I healed and I helped others heal too. I would say, just always be the best that you can be and do the best that you can do, and just always try to help people. Keep your connection with God first and foremost. Um, Talk to God out loud. Ask for signs and synchronicities, and He'll bring them to you. Um, yeah, you guys. So that's my testimony. That's my life in a nutshell for you guys. And I'll update you guys more in the next years. But for right now, that's what I felt like you needed to know. So thank you so much for watching, liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Stay blessed, never stressed, much peace, much power, much love, much light, and of course, much joy.